Okay, so we've got 12 plate Fiesta with 1.6 HDI engine that's in various cars. This came in as a non-runner, crank the engine over, no compression. Now these have got a tendency to, if you don't change the belts on these, they chew the belts up. As you can see, the teeth are missing on this belt. However, you can rebuild the tops of these engines. They don't usually bend the valves. I've seen one of these that dropped a valve, and obviously it had to be head off to replace the valve. However, usually you can go rock cover off, take the belt off, the cam out, and then you can rebuild inside. So that's what we're going to do. Obviously we've taken the coolant bottle out of the way, drain the coolant down, taking the engine mount this side off so we can get the belt cover off, just have a look to see. So next thing we'll do is when you get this rocker needs to come off, cover needs to come off. However, these boost hoses cover everything. So we'll get these hoses off, two Jubilees, some bolts, get this out of the way. This under these 4 bolts, rather than undoing this Jubilee, because that will be a pain to get off of that. It's just easier to undo in 4 bolts. So I'm going to undo the Jubilees, get these off, look underneath, see what's going on. Okay, so take that boost hose off, Jubilees. This 4 bolts at the back, so they're going to be easier. Loosen off your Jubilee clip, only purely to move it out of the way to get access to the bolts. Don't try and disconnect it from here because it won't come. So with 4 bolts at the back, 8 mils. You have one 10mm nut there, 8mm bolt there, going through into there. And connector, your electrical connector. And underneath you've got a bracket there onto that stud, 13mm nut. And then pull the whole assembly out. Now you start to see the top of the rocker. Now this one needs to come out of the way, it's now loose. So I usually disconnect from here, 10mm, 10mm underneath as well. Take this whole pipe off, 7mm. So we'll get this off now, I'll come back. Right, so remove the pipe work here as well now, 2 10mm on the end. Now at the back here we've got this wiring loom holder, it just pushes out the back. There's usually a bolt here as well, which obviously doesn't put back in. So 13mm bolt there. To get this out of the way, just gonna have to break away, snip the tyres, pull all out the loom, and then we can get this bit out of the way. So we get this out, disconnect this clip here, breather, and then I need to obviously take top cover off, but this is piece of it. So a bit of a tricky one, but I'll get into that in a minute. Get this out of the way and we'll come back to this cover. Right, so disconnect that tube, wiring loom, harness, track gone, so we can get to the bolts. Now as I said, this undo your bolts on the top all the way around, but also got one hiding here, 10mm, and then one hiding here at the back as well, which needs to come out. This little plug and it's popping out as well, and then this whole piece will come out as well as top cover. It's all one piece. So undo your bolt back in there, undo your top ones, and then we'll get this off. Okay, so once you've undone your bolts, go around and your 2 down there, give it a wiggle, pull it off. We're trying to get under here to get to the rockers, so the cams will come out, the cam carrier comes out. So obviously the unbolts from these bolts here, a couple on the end. Let's get the vacuum pump off next. Vacuum pump's got 2 bolts. So we pull the vacuum pump off and the tubes. We're getting the belt off, and you can just cut it, doesn't make no difference at the minute. Get the belt off, and then we can look at getting the camshaft out. So we have to take off all this business down here as well later on, because obviously I'm just putting the new belt on, but for the minute, just to see under here, snip through, and at least the belt's out of the way. We can do and lift the cam out. So we'll get the vacuum pump off, and we'll look at getting the cam out. Right, so vacuum pump removed, 2 bolts hold that on, obviously your tubes. I need to remove the diesel filter housing as well, because it's bolted in their wisdom through the cam carrier. So take your bolts out of the top plate for 8mm, one there, one at the back, one through here. Get that out of the way. You can do it just by jigging it out of the way if you want. And disconnect it, you can disconnect it. See, connector. There's 1 bolt here, 1 bolt down in there, underneath all that rubbish. Another bolt here. And the whole unit should move backwards out of the way, just so you can get enough clearance on here. Once you've got that out of the way, we'll then belt off, cut, whatever you need to do with it, get it out of the way for a minute, because all the valves are going to be shut, so we can take the cam out so we can reset it. So belt, and then we'll start undoing this and then get this off. So diesel filter out of the way and come back. Okay, so once you've undone your bolts for your diesel housing, push it back out of the way, so we're clearing this corner. Loosen off all your bolts, the carrier. Obviously we've cut the belt for a minute, literally doesn't matter whether you cut it off, put it off, whatever. Just get it out of the way for a minute. So loosened off bolts in here, 8mm, 1 10mm here, no idea why. Now usually if you undid this, this would pop up from the spring pressure. However, this here is sealed with an instant gasket, so it's quite tough to get off. You need to be careful and tap up, try and break the seal. You also need to take this cam sensor out, T30, just undo the T30, wiggle the cam sensor out so we don't damage that. To the side. So we're not looking to break this seal, we're looking to break this seal here, along here. So I usually tap up underneath corner carefully, try and break the seal away, get your bolts out first, and then we can get the cam out. So get this disconnected between the two and come back. Okay, so pry up, pull off. Camshaft can now be lifted out. Now we can see our rockers. We get in here and see what's going on. Pull them out, inspect them, see what we've got, and come back. Right, so we lifted out our rockers. Now, you would usually expect to see cracks, broken rockers, etc. However, all 8 of these rockers are perfectly fine. So, not a crack in sight, no bending, no nothing. They're all perfectly fine. So, the fact that this has snapped the cam belt suggests that something somewhere would have moved. So, in their wisdom on these engines, this camshaft is actually hollow and these lobes are pressed onto it. So, what has happened is the lobes have moved around by a few degrees. So this will never ever run the engine correctly. So now we've pulled it out and we find no broken rockers, we have to suspect the cam. We've got a new cam coming, so we get the new cam fitted. These rockers will be fine. Let's go again. So slightly different, but this cam will need to be replaced, as it will have moved on these lobes, and we'll end up with misfires and things, and you could be chasing it for days, weeks, where this could be moved slightly round a few degrees one way or the other, or several of them could have moved. So anyway, we get back to the car, we start taking the bottom cam belt cover off, because we need to tighten the bottom end up now this is all out. So we start taking the engine mount off. Get this mount off now. 16mm bolts, 1, 2, 3, 4. Get this mount out of the way. Tensioner out of the way for the drive belt. Let's get the wheel off. Arch liner out of the way. So we get them out of the way now. We'll come back. Okay, so got the engine mount out of the way. 4 bolts, put it out of the way. Tensioner. We've taken the tension off the drive belt. 15mm on the tensioner. Put a 4mm pin through the hole, hold it out of the way. So we've got this wiring loom bracket, goes around the back. It's got an 8mm bolt through the back. The bracket up here, 8mm bolt goes through. So that releases that. Got the wheel out of the way obviously. Now we can pop this cover off, it's a rubber cover. Pop this cover off behind here. We can undo the centre bolt, get the bottom pulley off, and then we'll come back. Start taking this top belt cover off. So down there, top cover off, impact gun, get the bottom pulley off, 18mm I think it is. And then we get this top cover off, come back. Okay, so got that belt cover off. Bit of a struggle with this whole business going on, but take that off. Remove that old belt, because we've still got our tensioner here and a roller, which will come back new belt kit anyway. But now we need to come down here, put our 18mm back in. We've got this hole here, which we need to rotate round up, and it will line up with that hole there. You can put a pin through it, because at the minute our bottom end is miles out of time, so we need to rotate this around to this is at 12 o'clock position. We can put our pin through the top and lock it up. If you're unsure about this bit, you can watch the cam belt video I've already done on these engines to see where you are. But because all of the cam's out and the valves are all shut, you can rotate this freely. So we need to lock this up, and then we're going to get our water pump, which is there, get that off. I've already drained most of the coolant, but we will get some come out. Get that off, get that replaced. This is obviously our belt cover. It's been broken. It's not ideal, but we can get away a bit. Cam, crank sensor, sorry, sits there. Belt retainer has obviously been burning on the belt when it came off. You see the teeth are just starting to peel away. All the teeth are starting to disintegrate. If you look at the belt itself, it's the original belt. So this is why I need to change these belts. Okay, so a new camshaft just turned up, locked into place next to the old one. As we can clearly see, the lobes have definitely moved. This is the new one, this is the old one. The lobe is miles out, that one's not too bad. That one, miles out. That one, miles out. So, could have been chasing tails for a while with that one. So, if you get a belt snap and your rockers aren't broken, check the camshaft. Anyway, so we've now rotated our crank round. Put our locking pin in there. So that's timed up, ready for us to go. So water pump off and drain the rest of the Cambelt stuff. And then we'll start the rebuild. Okay, so if you've done your broken rockers, get them all out, replace them. Slot on. Need to clean this surface up. You need to rinse and gasket this. So you get your cam and lay your cam back in. Obviously we're putting a new cam in, but you want to make sure that this notch is facing somewhere to the front of the engine, because this lines up on the sprocket with that hole. So the notch lines up with the hole, and that hole is the liner. It's on the top here, so here we can move it in a minute. Now we need to get our top thin bead of instant gasket along and around. We can flip it over and it starts to tighten down. Okay, so you can put your bolts in, tighten down, see the gasket, squeeze out. Don't go mad tightening, but and also line up the sprocket now and put your pin through. So we know the cam's locked, the crank's locked. So now we're good to put a belt. Okay, so got the cam belt done, back on, vacuum pump back on. Now we need to look at the side engine cover, go back on. Get this on, then we get the engine mount back on. And we'll start rebuilding the top. Okay, so bottom cover back on, top cover back on, engine mount this side back on, lock cover on, tighten down. Next, this boost hose and this boost hose, maybe a bracket down here, and just slide it over that first and then hook it over this and slide it into there. And we'll put our cable loop back on. And we're pretty much there. So get these boost hoses back on, come back. Okay, so boost hoses all back on, connected up. Just put our drive belt on, fill back up with coolant. So now should be good to start. Running fine now, so just shows you that if these belts do strip, you can rebuild top end without having to take the head off, providing it hasn't dropped the valve. Obviously I was expecting to see broken rockers, but obviously the camshaft shifted instead, so just because it hasn't got broken rockers doesn't mean to say that you haven't got an issue. So make sure you check that cam, and I hope it's helpful. See you next one.